Welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We are the friends you can take with you wherever you are on the path of infertility. If this podcast has been a blessing to you, would you consider giving a gift today to ensure that those on the path of infertility always have a friend in their back pocket? Thanks for your support, and let's dive in. Hey there, welcome back to the Springs in the Desert podcast. I am Jillian, your host, and today I am joined by my lovely teammate, Cassi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure, truly. I am so spoiled here on the podcast to talk to many amazing people. And it's so fun to talk to, guests in other organizations and from around the world. It's also such a treat to talk to our own team members and dive into topics that are important. And today is no exception to that. We are talking about hope, friends. And hope, I think, can be an interesting concept, an interesting virtue to think about, to process when we have no children in our home or our families aren't the size that we are hoping for them to be. And Cassi, you were showing me a book just before we were hopping on here, and I'd like to give a shout out to that book because there's a section within that book that you pointed out that was really great. So could you talk about that book so we can kind of kick off the conversation of hope?
Yeah, so this book is The Secret Diary of Elizabeth Lesueur, and this particular version also includes some letters that she wrote to her godchildren and different people in her life. And one of the things that she wrote was a little treatise on hope. And it's actually just a couple of pages long, but it's really beautiful, and it really helped me to understand the difference between just a simple earthly hope and the supernatural virtue of hope. And I think we get those confused a lot. Like the word love, right? We can say, I love ice cream and I love my husband. And those are two totally different things. And, it's just the pleasure of ice cream versus I'm willing to sacrifice my pleasures for what's good for my husband. And that's something that only God can put in our hearts to do. So same way with hope. We can have hope that is, I hope that the Diamondbacks win the baseball game, and I hope that it doesn't rain tomorrow, but those are the types of hope that can definitely disappoint us. and the Bible says that, hope does not disappoint. It's like, well, it seems like it does sometimes. And that's the type of hope that is that theological virtue of hope that only God can put in our hearts, hope for things that are beyond our circumstances and this earthly realm. Yeah, so I would highly recommend that little treatise on hope for anybody who is maybe feeling a little disillusioned along this path.
I will definitely link that in the show notes because I don't have a copy of that and I want one yesterday. So I would, I think it's so great to have spiritual reading to aid throughout whatever journeys we're walking, and especially on the path of infertility, to have beautiful literature to accompany us and draw us closer to God, I think is a really great resource, or it's been a great tool to have in my back pocket in times of joy and also times of suffering and hardship. And I really love how you just set the stage there about sort of this earthly hope and a more supernatural hope. And I think you're right that we do get that confused sometimes because, especially in the English language, there are other languages that aren't as maybe limited in that way of describing love. For instance, there are other languages that have specific words when you're describing the ice cream or your husband, or God, which I think is really, really beautiful. But in the English language, alas, we have what we have. And so it is good to point that out because it's good to remind our brains what we're talking about and what hope that really is. And so I'm wondering, Cassi, if you would be willing to share a little bit about your hope, the hope in your journey with your husband, Ian, who I just love so dearly. He's such a great guy. Has hope looked different throughout your marriage, and kind of what was there maybe moments where there was a more earthly hope or a more supernatural hope? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so we've been married for 17 years now. So, and we were hoping to have children pretty much the whole time. So,
Mhm.
that was it's been a long time. So when I talk about these things, it's in a totally different place than I was when, in the first 5, even 10 years of this. So, if you're at a place where hope is really hard to talk about, I totally understand that. So early on, I really did, I think, have more of that earthly hope, but, just those positive desires that we all kind of have for things, that the way that we want things to go in life and the way that we envision them. But there came a point in time where it was really highly unlikely, like medically impossible, pretty much, that we were going to
Mm.
have children.
Mhm.
And I wanted to set aside that hope in the sense of the expectation that we were going to have children. And when I would kind of hint at that toward people in my life, it was almost like this big pushback of don't give up hope, don't give up hope. And in my mind, it kind of equated to like, okay, well, if I give up hope of having a child, then that means I don't believe that God can do a miracle, or I don't trust him. I don't have enough faith or something. So it felt like a bad thing to give up hope. But that was the earthly hope that I was talking about. It was just like, I just wanted to live in reality and to be like, okay, I no longer have this earthly hope of having a child, and I want to move on to other things in life that God might have for me. But I was stuck for a long time in that kind of tension. So one day, it was actually night, I was driving with Ian, and I was in the passenger seat there, and I just said, I hate hope. And it felt like such a blasphemous thing to say. But it was like, probably I had just gone through another cycle of hoping that I was going to be pregnant and being crushed that I wasn't. And people telling me, like, don't give up hope. And I was like, hope is the reason why I am crushed every month. I don't want this anymore. And I was
Mhm.
so that's where I had that probably confusion between hope in becoming pregnant and hope that I will, I believe that I will see the good things of the Lord in the land of the living.
Mhm.
It was okay for me to set aside that earthly hope and be willing to be pleasantly surprised by the Lord if it happened, but to hope that he still had good things in store for me, even if having my own children was not part of that picture. So in my prayer life, I, for a while, really was not open to talking to God about my desires anymore. It was kind of like this fatalistic kind of thinking where it's like, well, if God wants it to happen, it'll happen. If he doesn't, it won't. And it really doesn't matter what I want. He's not really concerned about that. It was almost like I believe in him and I believe that he's all loving. So miracles are for people who don't believe in him or don't know his love. So it's kind
Sure.
of like not really, he already has me. So I kind of for a while was not really living out of a belief that he personally loved me and personally had good things in store for me. So I would still pray, but I was pretty much like praying for other people at that point.
Mm.
And I think I became very numb to any desires. And yeah, maybe my hope wasn't so strong at that point. But eventually I kind of just said to God, okay, if you say in your word, you are the God of all comfort. So please comfort me. And it was like this little risk in trusting him that he was who he said he was at that point. And it was opening up in vulnerability to God when I had not been going there for a while. So long story short, he did comfort me. And it was through counseling, through spiritual direction, and through Springs in the Desert, through finding that community, and just really, I had to really rediscover God's character in order for that supernatural hope to grow and for me to get in touch with other desires that were in my heart that I had buried for a long time. So yeah, that was kind of my hope walk. And all throughout that time when it was really hard and heavy, I so wanted to hear about hope in childlessness. I was searching the internet. I was in all these Facebook groups, and it was really hard to find. So that's why I was really happy to come on and to talk about this, because I think that's the reason why a lot of people do continue treatments beyond the point where it's healthy for them and their body and their marriage and their emotional state, and why they might even turn to artificial reproductive technologies that violate their conscience or that, don't uphold the dignity of their marriage and the lives of children, because they so desperately have misplaced their hope, really, in a certain outcome. But if they can have witnesses of true hope, that you have amazing things to look forward to in your life, that the Lord cares about you personally and loves you personally and will give you the deepest desires of your heart, that you might not understand just how deep they go. That's the message that I would want for people to hear.
Cassie, thank you so much for sharing your story, like with the lens of hope over it. That was really so beautiful and also incredibly relatable. Just so relatable that I'm sure many listeners were like me as you were saying your story, that, yep, that's what people told me. Yep, that's what that felt like. Yes, that's how prayer looked like or looks like, and I think that two things that struck me is, the first, that when we do have that kind of a misplaced or misaligned understanding of hope, that it does affect so much of our life. It affects our marriage, our conversations with others. It affects our prayer life, that our understanding of God, our relationship of God, our understanding of ourselves and who we're created to be and what it means to be a child of God. And that, I think, is a really tangible thing for someone who's maybe struggling with some of the things that you shared in your story, that they could take maybe some time to read about hope, to read the treatise on hope that you shared at the beginning, to, maybe go to sources in scripture or the catechism to read about hope and try to, ask the Lord to shift their understanding if it isn't where it could be, where it could give that fruitfulness that you shared about. And I think the second thing that struck me in your story is just how hindsight 2020, like when we look back retrospectively, we can see that, but that, like, the journey is also really important, that there's so many graces along the way, that even if we don't feel it or see it, that God is working in us and loves us every step of the way. And so I just hope whoever is listening to this episode, wherever you're at, that truly, even if it feels like hope is disappointing you right now, or God doesn't have good things in store for you, that he's only there for those who don't believe in him, or he's only there for those who are sort of the one. You were part of the 99 and he has left to go seek out the one, that he is there for you and he loves you so deeply. And so I think that was just such a beautiful witness, like you said. And I want to, for just a minute, dive a little bit deeper into what you said, that when that desire, or when hope is maybe the earthly hope is what we are speaking about, And that desire, right, is not a bad desire. As you said, like you and Ian desired children, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But when that hope, or even, yeah, when we're speaking about hope we're speaking about the wrong version of hope, maybe, it can be a catalyst for continued treatment or continued, supplements, continued medications, like just whatever season someone is in their treatment or infertility process. It can be a motivation to continue, even if it isn't in the best interest of your body, your marriage, for that season. And I think something that is not necessarily, as you said, searching on the internet, like where are people talking about this? And I am also so grateful for Springs and this community for talking about things that aren't really talked about. And I think that like treatment piece is something that is not like widely talked about. Restoring our bodies to health is a really good thing. And that is just one good thing that is where I'm just going to put that on a shelf. Your marriage is also a really good thing. I want to put that on a different shelf. And we have to preserve those goods to, the best that we can. And sometimes those goods get sort of prioritized over each other, and others suffer because of a desire, or the thing that we're looking at is that wrong, that wrong version of hope. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering, Cassi, was there, like you said, you had that moment in the car where you said, I hate hope, and this distinction between earthly hope and supernatural hope. Was there, like, where do you think that you fleshed that out the most? Would you say it was spiritual direction in your own private prayer, in marriage? I'm sure it was a combination, but where do you think that kind of like really began to flesh out for you?
Yeah, I think in spiritual direction, it was really helpful for me. I went through a study that was talking about like the attributes of God, the characteristics of God, and kind of reshaping that into more alignment with truth, using things from the Bible and meditating on that. Because when we have a distorted image of God, it affects everything. And if I thought that God was distant, he was aloof, he didn't care about me personally, he wasn't really moved by my particular suffering, that I had already given my life to God, and I was going to carry this cross and offer it up. And overall, it was going to be good for the salvation of souls, but I didn't really matter or factor into that. That's really distorted. It's taking something that's partially true and just really making it into something kind of unbearable. So that type of study really helped me, that type of entering into prayer with the Lord and being very honest about those things, which I wasn't even really aware of myself, but I think my spiritual director kind of picked up on it. That was really good. And kind of in counseling, some inner child work sort of stuff, where it's learning to be okay again with getting in touch with those desires that God has put in my heart and that he does intend to fulfill. That just little by little gave me a little bit more trust and confidence and understanding of my true relationship with God, my true identity and all that. So even things like art actually has been, one of the fruits of that, I guess, is that I've rediscovered that kind of the joy of doing something that I love that the Lord has put inside of me. So those were some things that were really helpful for me. And in prayer then, I started to be able to ask for things, knowing that he would fulfill them at a deeper level. So I know that one of the things that I so looked forward to in having children was just literally being able to love children because I do. I love babies. I love toddlers. I love little kids. And so I was willing at that point to, and actually this came about more like even after I had to have a hysterectomy. So my physical fertility was definitively over. And also we had discerned that we were not called to pursue adoption. You know, if the Lord decides to do something unexpected, that's great. But other than that, you know, we were going to continue being a family of two. But I was just like, Lord, please give me children. You know, I don't know what that means, but I just want to have a special relationship with children, just to have them in my life again. Because like my nieces and nephews, we have a lot, but they've grown up, they've moved on, moved to different places. And I even have a lot of godchildren who are, who had been all throughout the country, really. And so they weren't just like part of my life in my everyday life. But so I was just like, okay with asking the Lord that. And I think that was like a big step in my spiritual life. But
Yes.
yeah. And since then, I've just been delighted by 3 new godchildren who they've come about through our involvement with Engaged Encounter. And it's just such a joy to be part of their lives and to be kind of welcomed into their family in a special way. So I'm really grateful to God for the way that he did that in this particular season. And I trust that he'll continue doing that sort of thing to delight me and to fulfill those desires that I have in my heart. So, yeah.
That is so good. I love what how you've been describing prayer, because I know that's something that I want to take to prayer too after this conversation, because I sort of disqualify myself from receiving gifts from God. I think to myself, well, I like practically can't get this thing, so I'm going to stop asking for it. Or this doesn't make sense for me, and so why would I ask God to fulfill this desire? So rather than bringing that to the Lord and putting it in his hands, I just sort of shove it into my back pocket or into the corner. And God has given us the desires of our hearts and wants to fulfill those. And so I think what you spoke about, being willing to be sort of surprised by however he decides to fulfill that, is really the key there. You know, that, and the 2 steps, like just bring it to him. He loves you and knows your desires already and wants to hear from you what that means to you. He is a good father. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way, for sure, especially in the context of hope. But he wants to hear from us. And so to share those and then be, willing to be surprised, delighted in whatever that looks like. Even when, and I just, I appreciate you sharing the context there, because I think oftentimes, whether that's, it's typically very well intentioned, but people will say, well, have you tried this thing? Have you done this thing? How about this? Have you discerned this thing? And sometimes none of those options are actually on the table for your family. Sometimes that is not what God is calling you to do, because he has something different in store. And he has something he wants to, to answer that prayer and fulfill that desire. And so you just worded that so well that I want to, I'm going to put up probably a sticky note in my prayer corner. Don't forget about this thing that Cassi talked about.
Yeah, I think that I was thinking about another great book, which I know a lot of people know about, but Father Jacques Philippe's books, any of them are awesome. But Searching for and Maintaining Peace and Interior Freedom, those 2 were huge. And one thing he talks about is like, okay, when we're not following the Lord and we're off doing our thing, the enemy tempts us by wanting things that are bad. But when we are, following the Lord and living out our faith, then he tempts us to want things that are good in a disordered way. Like the way that we want it becomes a source of, it disturbs us because we want it so desperately, and we want it in the way that we want, when we want, how we want it. And so that also is helpful to keep in mind that, yes, the thing that we want is good, but we need to find out how we can want it and remain at peace, so that the way that we want it is also leading us closer to God.
Yes. I'll link those books too. Father Jacques Philippe is incredible, an incredible writer. And his books are also, they're so packed full of mic drops and just incredible spiritual like confirmations and encouragement, but they're also really accessible and short, and you could carry them with you wherever you're at. And they're just such a gift to the world. I'm wondering, Cassie, if there's a woman, I would guess, because I have been this woman, but there's probably some listeners or men who are listening to this who feel that their fulfillment, their happiness is only in having a child. And although a lot of what we have said here, I hope will bring some comfort, and they'll have some things to wrestle with in the Lord and prayer. But what would you maybe say to that woman or couple who are really struggling with that like this is where I think the fulfillment is, and having my own biological child, or even that could be we want to adopt and that isn't happening, like we're not getting matched, we're not, whatever that sort of, I think that this is what my fulfillment is. What would you maybe say to her in this moment?
Yeah, I think I would just say that maybe begin to question that, and to say, is that true? And to take it to the Lord in prayer and say, Lord, I feel like this is the only way that I can be happy, and this is the only way that I will be fulfilled. And that's where I am right now. And just keep that open dialogue. And then another thing that, like Elizabeth Lesueur says in her treatise on hope, is that this kind of hope is a supernatural virtue, and it's not something that you can get yourself or strive yourself, or just do all the right positive thinking tricks to get, because it's not just a psychological kind of switch, but it really is a gift from the Lord. So I would say to pray for the gift of supernatural hope, or for an increase in that gift, and to put yourself in contact with the source of that gift, often through the sacraments. So yeah, in going to the Eucharist, ask him for that supernatural gift of hope. And if you feel like you've fallen into discouragement to the point where you are like almost meditating on hopelessness, that could be something also to take to confession and say that you're struggling with hope. And that, it may or may not be a sin, depending on how much your will was involved or whatever, but just to go wherever the grace of God is available to you, and ask for that. And I know that he will offer that to you, because he says he will. And that's the hope that passes all understanding.
Amen, Cassie. My gosh, you were just, it's like left and right. It's like, I feel so consoled. Not only is your voice like the best voice ever for a podcast, it's so peaceful, but also like just such gold. Like really, the Lord, I feel the Lord not only speaking to me, but I really think to others in this conversation. And like going to the source of what we're looking for, we do that in so many other places in our lives, and I forget to do that in my spiritual life, in prayer, in my love of God. If I am looking for something that is supernatural, why would I not go to the source of that? And I don't do that enough. I certainly don't. And so I love, just wherever God's grace is available, seek him. go to him and he will give it to you because he's a good father and he does what he says he does. Like there is no duplicity in God. There is no, he does what he says and he says what he does. There's no caveats to that. There are no tricks there. That is truly, but that is, as you said, a supernatural gift. And so to seek him, to ask for an increase in that, because it won't feel that way. There will feel like there is a duplicity if our understanding of hope is only in that earthly kind of hope. And I am going to be praying about that, friend. I'm really going to be doing
Me
that.
too. I'll ask for more.
Yes.
There's always more.
There is. Yes. Oh, another great thing right there. There is always more. Oh, wow. I pray, listener, that wherever you are at, whether literally, like physically, if you are in your vehicle, if you are in your favorite prayer corner, if you are out on a walk, I truly hope that any part of this conversation has given you a little bit of consolation, a little bit of kind of the next step of where to go in the conversation of hope. And maybe you've been really feeling hopeless in this season, or maybe you've been feeling full of hope. Either way, God desires you. He wants to know you more and deeper, and we can always ask for more because there is always more. Oh, so good. Wow. Cassi, thank you so much for sharing your story and really giving us kind of a roadmap for what hope could look like and where we can seek that. And so I really appreciate you in this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure for sure.
Well, listeners, if you are looking for some resources for hope, they will be in the show notes. I will be buying everything that I don't already have on the shelf that I'm looking at across my office here. And we are praying for you wherever you are at. As Cassi started her story, you might be in year 1 of your marriage. You might be in year 5 on the path of infertility. You might be married for 17 years. Wherever you are at, the Lord is with you and we are walking with you, and we are so grateful to get to love you. We'll see you next time on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for this Springs in the Desert podcast episode. We would be so grateful if you took a minute to rate, review, subscribe, and give today so that we can reach more listeners on the path of infertility. Don't forget to check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and go to our website, springsinthedesert.org, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and community prayer list, read our blog, and register for virtual and in-person events. And most importantly, remember that God loves you so much, and so do we.